Elliot Harper's knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel, the rain hammering his pickup truck like 1,000 accusations. 12 hours ago, he'd left Chicago with a birthday cake strapped into the passenger seat, its pink frosting roses trembling with every jolt of the road. He was driving to Edenville, Alabama, to face a family that hadn't spoken his name in 5 years. Not since they'd called him the gay sin and shut him out. The wipers screeched across the windshield, barely keeping up with the storm. Elliot's phone buzzed on the dashboard, but he ignored it. It was probably Marcus, his boyfriend, texting again to ask if he was sure about this insane trip. Marcus didn't understand. He couldn't. This wasn't just about a birthday cake or his little sister Lila's 16th birthday. It was about proving he was still human, still family, still worth something to the people who'd once loved him. 5 years ago, Elliot had come out to his parents at their oak dining table, the same one where they'd carved pumpkins and said grace. He'd been 23, fresh out of college, his heart pounding with hope that they'd accept him. Instead, his father, Reverend Thomas Harper, had stood, face like stone, and quoted Leviticus. His mother, Deborah, had wept silently, her hands twisting a napkin into knots. Lila, only 11, had stared, confused, as their voices rose and the word, sin, cut through the air like a blade. By morning, Elliot was gone, his belongings in a duffel bag, his name erased from their prayers. Now, at 28, Elliot was a graphic designer in Chicago, living a life he'd built from scratch with Marcus, a pediatric nurse with a laugh that could light up a room. They had a small apartment, a cat named Juniper, and a love that felt like home. But the ache for Edenville never left. When Lila's cryptic email arrived 2 weeks ago, "I miss you. I'm 16 soon. They still don't talk about you." Elliot knew he had to go back. He'd bought the cake, Lila's favorite, strawberry with pink roses, and hit the road before doubt could stop him. The rain thickened as he crossed the Tennessee border. Memories flooded in. Lila's gap-toothed grin as they built forts in the backyard, her tiny hand in his as they walked to the creek. She'd been his shadow, his confidant, even when she was too young to understand. He wondered what she looked like now, if she still wore her hair in braids, if she still believed in him. A truck honked, snapping him back. The cake wobbled in its box, and he reached over to steady it, his heart racing. "Hang in there," he muttered, unsure if he was talking to the cake or himself. The road signs for Edenville were close now, 30 miles. His stomach churned. What if they slammed the door in his face? What if Lila had changed her mind? He pushed the thoughts down, focusing on the rhythm of the wipers, the hum of the engine, the promise of seeing her smile. Edenville appeared through the rain like a ghost town, its main street lined with shuttered shops and a neon-lit diner. The Harper house was on the outskirts, a white clapboard with a wraparound porch, unchanged since he'd left. Elliot parked a block away, his hands shaking as he unbuckled the cake. The rain soaked his jacket as he stepped out, the box cradled against his chest like a shield. He stood there, staring at the house, its windows glowing with warmth he wasn't sure he'd find. This was it. No turning back. The porch steps creaked under Elliot's boots, each one a reminder of the years he'd been gone. The cake felt heavier now, its pink roses blurred by the rain streaking the plastic box. He stood at the door, heart hammering, and raised his fist to knock, but froze. What if they didn't want him here? What if Lila's email was a fluke, a moment of weakness she'd regret? He glanced at the window. Through the lace curtains he saw movement, a shadow passing, then another. Laughter spilled out, faint but unmistakable. Lila's birthday party was in full swing. He pictured her blowing out candles, surrounded by friends, maybe even a boyfriend, while their parents beamed with pride. Did they even notice he was missing? He knocked before he could overthink it. The door swung open, and there she was, Lila, taller now, her braids gone, her hair a cascade of curls. Her eyes, still that same hazel, widened. "Elliot?" she whispered, like she couldn't believe he was real. "Lila," he said, his voice cracking. "Happy birthday." She threw her arms around him, nearly knocking the cake from his hands. Her hug was fierce, warm, and for a moment, the rain and the years melted away. "You came," she said, pulling back to look at him. "You actually came. I couldn't miss it," he said, holding up the cake. "Strawberry pink roses, just like you always wanted." Her smile faltered as a voice called from inside. "Lila, who's at the door?" It was Deborah, her tone sharp with curiosity. Lila's eyes darted to Elliot, a flicker of fear in them. It's Elliot," she called back, her voice trembling. Silence. Then footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Reverend Thomas appeared in the doorway, his broad shoulders filling the frame. His face, lined with age, hardened as he saw Elliot. Deborah stood behind him, her hands clasped, her eyes glistening with something between shock and pain. "What are you doing here?" Thomas's voice was low, controlled, but it carried the weight of 5 years of silence. Elliot swallowed. "I came for Lila's birthday. I wanted to see her." "You're not welcome here," Thomas said, each word a stone. "You made your choice." "Dad, please," Lila said, stepping forward. "He drove all this way. He brought a cake." Thomas's gaze flicked to the box, then back to Elliot. "We don't need your gifts. Or your sins." The word hit like a slap, but Elliot stood his ground. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here for Lila. She asked me to come." Deborah's hand went to her mouth, and she looked at Lila, who nodded, tears in her eyes. "I emailed him, Mom. I miss him. He's my brother." The air crackled with tension. Neighbors' voices drifted from the living room, oblivious to the storm brewing on the porch. Elliot's heart pounded, but he met his father's eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to be here for her." Thomas's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, Lila grabbed Elliot's hand and pulled him inside. "Come in," she said, defiant. "You're staying." The living room was a time capsule, same floral couch, same family photos minus the ones with Elliot. A dozen teenagers and a few adults milled around, paper plates in hand, laughing over a store-bought cake already half-eaten. All eyes turned to Elliot, the stranger with the rain-soaked jacket and the pristine cake. Whispers started, and he felt the weight of their stares. Lila led him to the kitchen, away from the crowd. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice low. "I didn't know they'd react like that." "It's okay," Elliot lied, setting the cake on the counter. "I'm here now." She hugged him again, and for the first time in years, he felt a piece of home slot back into place. But as he glanced at the doorway where Thomas and Deborah stood watching, he knew this was only the beginning. The kitchen smelled of coffee and vanilla, a stark contrast to the storm outside. Elliot stood by the counter, the cake box unopened, as Lila rummaged for plates. The chatter from the living room felt miles away, like a world he no longer belonged to. His parents hadn't followed them into the kitchen, but their presence lingered, heavy as the rain-soaked air. "You didn't have to do this," Lila said, slicing the cake with a butter knife. Her hands shook slightly, betraying her bravado. "Drive all this way, in this weather." "I wanted to," Elliot said, leaning against the counter. "I've missed you, kid." She smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "I've missed you too. It's not the same without you. They act like you never existed." Elliot's chest tightened. He'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, but the reality was Messier. "What's it been like here?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. Lila shrugged, plating a slice of cake. "Same old Edenville. Church every Sunday, Dad's sermons, Mom's book club. They don't talk about you, but I see it in their eyes. They miss you too, even if they won't admit it." He wanted to believe her, but the memory of his father's words, "your sins," burned too fresh. "And you? How's my favorite sister holding up?" She laughed, a small, bright sound. "I'm not your only sister, dummy, but I'm okay. School's fine, I've got friends. There's this guy," Caleb, her cheeks flushed, and she looked away. Elliot grinned. "Caleb, huh? Spill." Before she could, Deborah entered, her face a mask of composure. "Lila, your guests are asking for you," she said, her eyes avoiding Elliot. Lila hesitated, then handed Elliot a plate of cake. "Stay here. I'll be back." Left alone with his mother, Elliot felt the air grow thick. He set the plate down, searching for words. "Mom," he started. "I didn't come to cause trouble. I just..." "Don't," she cut him off, her voice soft but firm. "You can't just walk back in like nothing happened." "I'm not trying to," he said, his throat tight. "I'm trying to be here for Lila. For you, if you'll let me." Her eyes met his, and for a moment, he saw the woman who'd bandaged his scraped knees, who'd sung him to sleep. Then she looked away. "Your father's right. You made your choice." The word stung, but he refused to flinch. "My choice was to be honest, to be who I am. I'm still your son." She didn't answer, just turned and walked out. Elliot stood there, the cake untouched, the weight of her silence heavier than the rain. The party wound down, guests trickling out into the night. Elliot stayed in the kitchen, helping Lila clean up, their conversation a fragile thread of normalcy. She told him about school, her art classes, her dream of studying marine biology. He told her about Chicago, about Marcus's terrible cooking, about the way the city lights reflected on the lake. For a while, it felt like they'd never been apart. But the house grew quiet, and the reality of his parents' rejection loomed. Lila glanced at the clock. "You're not driving back tonight, are you? It's still pouring." "I'll find a motel," Elliot said, though he hadn't planned that far. "Don't worry. Stay here," she said, her voice firm. "There's a guest room. They can't say no." He doubted that, but before he could argue, Thomas appeared in the doorway. "Lila, it's late. Say goodnight." She crossed her arms. "He's staying, Dad. He drove 12 hours. In the rain. For me." Thomas's eyes narrowed, but Lila didn't back down. Elliot saw the fire in her, the same stubbornness he'd had at her age. "Lila," Thomas said, "this isn't your decision." "It's my birthday," she shot back, "and he's my brother. If you kick him out, I'm going with him." The standoff was electric. Deborah appeared behind Thomas, her face pale. "Thomas, let's not do this tonight," she said quietly. "He can stay. One night." Elliot's heart leapt, but Thomas's silence was deafening. Finally, he nodded, a curt gesture, and walked away. Deborah showed Elliot to the guest room, her movements mechanical. "Towels are in the closet," she said, then left without another word. Alone in the room, Elliot sat on the edge of the bed, his jacket still damp. The walls were bare, the room stripped of the warmth he remembered. He pulled out his phone and texted Marcus. "Made it. Lila's amazing. Parents not so much. Love you." Marcus's reply came instantly. "Proud of you. Call me tomorrow. Love you too." Elliot lay back, staring at the ceiling. He'd crossed the threshold, but the real battle was just beginning. Morning broke with a weak sun, the rain reduced to a drizzle. Elliot woke to the smell of coffee and the distant sound of hymns. Sunday, of course. His father's church, Edenville Baptist, would be packed by now, the congregation hanging on Thomas's every word. Lila knocked on his door, already dressed in a sundress. "Come to church with us," she said, her eyes pleading. "It'll show them you're trying." Elliot hesitated. Church was a minefield, but he couldn't say no to her. "Okay," he said, pulling on a clean shirt. "For you." The church was a short walk, its steeple a beacon over the town. Inside, the pews were filled, the air thick with perfume and anticipation. Elliot felt every eye on him as he sat beside Lila, his parents a row ahead. Thomas took the pulpit, his voice booming with authority. The sermon was on forgiveness, but Elliot caught the subtext. Sin, repentance, the narrow path to salvation. Every word felt aimed at him. Afterward, people approached, some offering stiff smiles, others avoiding his gaze. A woman named Mrs. Carver, who'd once baked him cookies, whispered, "You're brave to come back." It wasn't much, but it was something. At lunch, the Harper house was tense. Thomas ate in silence, Deborah picked at her food, and Lila kept the conversation alive, asking Elliot about Chicago. Finally, she turned to their parents. "Why can't you just talk to him? He's here. He's trying." Thomas set down his fork. "Lila, this isn't simple. There are things you don't understand." "Then explain it," she said, her voice rising. "Explain why you act like he's dead." Deborah's eyes filled with tears. "Lila, please." "No," Lila said. "You taught me family is everything. So why isn't he?" Elliot's heart ached, but he spoke up. "She's right. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to see me." Thomas stood, his chair scraping. "I see you, Elliot. I see what you've chosen, and I can't condone it." He walked out, leaving a silence that crushed. Deborah reached for Lila's hand, but Lila pulled away. "I'm sorry," Deborah whispered to Elliot, then followed Thomas. Lila turned to him, tears streaming. "I thought they'd change." Elliot pulled her into a hug. "It's okay. You're enough." The next day, Elliot planned to leave. He'd done what he came for. Seen Lila, given her the cake, reminded her she was loved. But as he packed, Lila burst into the guest room. "Don't go," she said. "Not yet. I have an idea." Her idea was a picnic by the creek, just the two of them like old times. They spread a blanket under a willow, the air warm with summer's last breath. Lila talked about her dreams, her fears, her anger at their parents. Elliot listened, marveling at her strength. She was no longer the little girl he'd left behind. As they packed up, a car pulled up nearby. Caleb, Lila's boyfriend, stepped out, a lanky boy with a shy smile. "You must be Elliot," he said, extending a hand. "Lila talks about you all the time." Elliot shook his hand, liking him instantly. "Take care of her," he said, only half joking. "I will," Caleb promised, then hesitated. "For what it's worth, I think it's cool you came back." Not everyone would. The words stayed with Elliot as he drove to the motel that night, Lila's insistence that he stay one more day ringing in his ears. He called Marcus, spilling everything, the party, the sermon, the picnic. Marcus listened, then said, "You're doing the hard thing. I'm proud of you." But the hard thing wasn't over. That evening, Lila called, her voice frantic. "Dad's giving a special sermon tonight. About family values. I heard him practicing. It's about you." Elliot's stomach dropped. He drove to the church, slipping into the back pew as Thomas began. The sermon was fire and brimstone, a thinly veiled attack on those who stray from God's path. Elliot felt the congregation's eyes, some pitying, some accusing. He stood, heart pounding, and walked out before Thomas could finish. Outside, Lila was waiting, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I thought he'd changed." Elliot hugged her. "It's not your fault, but I can't stay." She clung to him. "Don't give up on us." "I won't," he promised. But as he drove away, the weight of his father's words pressed down. He wasn't sure he could keep that promise. Elliot drove through the night, the rain starting again, softer now. The cake box was empty, left behind with Lila, but its purpose lingered, a symbol of love that refused to break. He thought of Marcus, waiting in Chicago, of the life they'd built, of the family he still hoped to reclaim. Halfway home, he stopped at a diner, the kind of place where truckers and drifters swapped stories over coffee. His phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "I talked to Mom," she cried. "She wants to call you. Don't give up." Elliot stared at the message, his heart a tangle of hope and hurt. He thought of his mother's tears, his father's anger, Lila's courage. He'd driven 12 hours in the rain for a birthday cake, for a chance at redemption, and maybe, just maybe, it wasn't for nothing. He typed a reply, "I won't. Love you, kid." Then he called Marcus, his voice steady for the first time in days. "I'm coming home," he said, "and I'm not done fighting." The diner's neon sign glowed in the rain, a beacon in the dark. Elliot paid his bill, stepped into the night, and drove on, carrying the weight of his family's rejection but also the flicker of hope Lila had given him. He wasn't the gay sin. He was Elliot Harper, brother, son, partner, human. And that was enough. As the miles stretched on, he pictured Lila's smile, Marcus's laugh, the possibility of a call from his mother. The road ahead was long, but for the first time, it felt like it might lead somewhere worth going.